I never imagined the day would come when my own parents would stand on my doorstep, voices cracking like dry leaves, begging for the one thing they had thrown away 20 years earlier. Amina, please, just let us see our grandson. We've carried this guilt long enough. Their eyes were wet, hands trembling as they clutched a small packet of sweets like an offering. But the truth I held inside was sharper than any knife. My son, he didn't exist. My name is Amina Khan. I was 15 the year my world cracked open. Back then, life in our modest Islamabad home felt steady and warm, the kind of ordinary you don't appreciate until it's gone. Every morning the call to prayer would drift through the window while Ami stirred chai in the kitchen, the smell of cardamom and fresh milk filling the air. Abu sat at the table with his newspaper, glasses perched on his nose, asking in his quiet, firm voice, Beta, 10th grade results Kabinj? Study hard. Future Banani High. I was the obedient daughter. Top of the class, always helping with chores, dreaming of becoming a teacher one day. My little brother, 8 years old, would tug my dupatta and beg for stories before bed. We ate together every evening, roti torn by hand, laughter rising above the clink of steel plates. My parents weren't rich, but they were proud. They believed in honor, in family name, in the straight path. And I believed in them. Then came the first quiet crack in that perfect picture. It started with small things I tried to ignore. The way my stomach turned at the smell of breakfast, the sudden tiredness that made me lean against the school wall during recess. My periods were late, 2 weeks, then 3. I told myself it was stress from exams. But deep down, a cold suspicion bloomed. The boy from the next class, tall, soft-spoken, the one who had whispered promises under the neem tree behind school, had stopped answering my calls. Still, I pushed the fear away, convincing myself it couldn't be real. Not in my life. Not with parents like mine. One rainy afternoon in late October, I couldn't pretend anymore. The nausea came in waves while I was washing dishes. The plate slipped from my hand and shattered against the steel sink with a sound that echoed through the whole house. Ami turned from the stove, her wooden spoon still dripping curry. Kia hua, Amina? Chera bilkul safe tie. I mumbled something about a headache and ran to the bathroom. There, staring at the small plastic stick I had hidden under the laundry basket for 2 days, 2 pink lines stared back at me. Clear, cruel, undeniable. I sat on the cold tile floor for what felt like hours, the tap dripping in slow rhythm. My school uniform still damp from the rain outside. 15 years old. Pregnant. The word felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else's daughter. I thought of the boy, his name doesn't matter now. He transferred schools the next month and never looked back. I thought of my parents' faces when they found out. I thought of the shame that would swallow our whole family name. That evening I told them. Dinner was quiet until I couldn't hold it in anymore. The words came out small and broken. Ami, Abu Mui Baksha Hon Walahai. Silence thicker than fog settled over the table. Abu's spoon froze halfway to his mouth. Ami's hand went to her chest as if the air had been punched out of her. Then Abu stood so fast the chair scraped backward. His voice was low, dangerous. Ye Judhai, Mary Beti Isa Kuch Nahi Kar Sakti. I cried, begged them to listen, but the more I spoke, the angrier he became. Ami just kept whispering, Allah, hum kia ganakia. They gave me 1 night. 1 night to pack whatever I could carry in 2 plastic bags. Abu didn't look at me while he spoke the final words. Abtu hamari beti nahi. Yegar tera nahi. Jajahan janahai. Lekin hamar nam pi daf matlaga. Ami stood in the doorway, tears streaming, but she didn't stop him. She didn't hug me. She just watched as I walked out into the dark street. Rain soaking through my dupatta. The weight of a life inside me heavier than any bag I carried. I stayed with my Kala in Rawalpindi for a few months. She was kind but distant, afraid the neighbors would talk. When my belly started showing, even her kindness thinned. I moved again, this time to a small girls' shelter run by a quiet NGO near Lahore. There I met other girls like me. Some younger, some older, all carrying the same stunned look in their eyes. They taught me how to fold tiny clothes, how to breathe through the fear. When my son was born, tiny, perfect, screaming, I named him Zain, holding him against my chest for the first time, smelling the warm baby smell of his head. I understood something. Love doesn't need permission. It just arrives and claims you. I finished my matric through private exams while working night shifts at a small tailoring shop. Zain grew up calling the women at the shelter aunties. We lived simply, 2 rooms, 1 fan, shared kitchen, but we were safe. He was bright, gentle, always asking questions. Ami, why don't we have dedadati like other kids? I would smile, kiss his forehead and say, some families are small, beta, but ours is full of love. He accepted it. Children do. Years passed like pages turning slowly. Zain turned 18, then 20. He got into university on scholarship, computer science. He was proud, protective. Every time he came home on break he would cook for me, tease me about my gray hairs, hug me so tight my ribs ached in the best way. I built a life I never thought possible after that rainy night. A small, honest life. But never once did I tell my parents he existed. Not because I hated them, though part of me did, but because I refused to let them near the one pure thing they had tried to erase. Then, 2 months ago, the doorbell rang. They stood there in the narrow hallway of our small rented flat. Abu thinner than I remembered, hair completely white now, leaning on a walking stick. Amy smaller, hunched, clutching that packet of ladoos like it could buy back 2 decades. The same eyes that once refused to meet mine now searched my face desperately. Amina, Beta, hum sun chukhain. Zain, hamarapoda, hum usi milna chathain. As Ekbar. I didn't invite them in right away. I stood in the doorway, arms folded, feeling the old ache rise in my chest like a tide I thought had long receded. The fan above us whirred lazily. Outside, a motorbike honked twice and faded. 20 years. 20 years of birthdays celebrated with just the two of us. Of hospital nights when Zain had fever and I sat alone holding his small burning hand. Of school functions where other parents clapped and mine were ghosts. And now they wanted in. I let them sit on the old sofa. Amy immediately started crying soft, hiccuping sobs that made her shoulders shake. Abu kept his gaze on the floor, fingers twisting the head of his stick. We were wrong, he said finally, voice hoarse. We were scared. Is it Kadar? Log kia kahenj. Hum sosha yasab kadam hojayega. Lekin har raz yad adi hai. Har raz duk hoda hai. I listened. I let the words settle. Then I spoke quietly, the way I had rehearsed in my head so many times and never expected to say aloud. You didn't just send me away. You told me I was no longer your daughter. You let me walk into the night carrying a child you never wanted to acknowledge. I slept on train station benches some nights because even Kala's house became too small for shame. I gave birth alone in a government hospital while the nurse asked where my husband was. And every time Zain asked about his grandparents, I had to invent stories so he wouldn't feel abandoned the way I did. Amy reached for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't hold on either. Hum maf kar du, Amina. Bas Zain ko bada du. Hum uski dadadadi hain. I looked at them both for a long moment, the people who once shaped my entire world, now fragile and pleading. Then I told them the truth that had protected me all these years. Zain isn't here. They blinked, confused. He moved to Canada last year for his master's. Full scholarship. He calls every Sunday. He's happy. He has friends, a good apartment, plans for the future. But he doesn't know you exist. Not because I poisoned him against you. I never spoke badly of you. I just never spoke of you at all. I let him grow up believing our family was always just us. Small, but whole. Abu's face crumpled. To, wo nahi janta? I shook my head. He doesn't know the people who threw his mother out like yesterday's trash are still alive and asking to meet him now that he's successful. Now that there's no scandal left to fear. Silence stretched again, heavier this time. Amy's sobs grew quieter, turning into something broken and resigned. Abu tried to speak twice, but nothing came out. Finally he whispered, Hum sab kuch barbad kar dia. I didn't disagree. I didn't comfort them either. After a while I stood. You can leave the ladoos on the table. I'll eat them later, but don't come back asking for a grandson who doesn't know your names. If you want forgiveness, earn it somewhere else. I forgave you years ago, not for your sake but for mine, so I could sleep at night, so I could raise a good man without carrying hate in my heart. But access? That's not mine to give anymore. It's his, and he's not here. They left slowly, Abu's stick tapping against the stairs like a metronome counting regret. Amy turned once at the door, eyes pleading one last time. I closed it gently, not in anger, just finished. That night I called Zain. The line was clear despite the distance. He laughed about some snow he'd never seen before, asked if I was eating properly, told me he missed my biryani. I listened to his voice, so steady, so kind, and felt the familiar warmth settle in my chest. I didn't tell him about the visit. Maybe one day I will. Maybe when he's older and stronger. Or maybe never. Some wounds don't need reopening. I've learned this much. Family isn't only blood. It's the people who stay when the storm comes. It's the ones who choose you every single day. Zain chose me. I chose him. That's enough. If you're listening to this and carrying a similar hurt, whether you're the one who was cast out or the one who did the casting, know that healing doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it means quiet boundaries. Sometimes it means building something new from the pieces you were left with. And sometimes, the greatest love is the one you protect by keeping it away from those who once tried to destroy it. Would you have opened the door wider? Would you have let them meet him? Or would you have done exactly what I did? Tell me in the comments below. And if stories like this have ever helped you feel less alone, consider subscribing to Broken Trust Stories. There are so many voices still waiting to be heard.